Hi boys, I hope we're all doing well and I hope we're all staying safe. I'm still missing you all loads. So today I'm going to read to you from the David Walliams book, The Boy in the Dress. I know a few of you already know it and enjoy it. So yeah, get yourselves comfy, get yourself cosy again, and I will read chapter 1 for you today, which is titled No Hugging, which is quite appropriate. Dennis was different. When he looked in the mirror, he saw an ordinary 12-year-old boy, but he felt different. His thoughts were full of colour and poetry, though his life could be very boring. The story I'm going to tell you begins here, in Dennis's ordinary house, on an ordinary street, in an ordinary town. His house was nearly exactly the same as all the others in the street. One house had double glazing, another did not. One had gravel on the drive, and another had crazy paving. One had a Vauxhall Cavalier, and the other in the drive, another had a Vauxhall Astra. Tiny differences that only really pointed out the sameness of everything. It was all so ordinary. Something extraordinary just had to happen. Dennis lived with his dad, who did have a name, but Dennis just called him Dad. So I will too. And his older brother John, who was 14. Dennis found it frustrating that his brother would always be 2 years older than him and bigger and stronger. Dennis's mum had left home a couple of years ago. Before that, Dennis used to creep out of his room and sit on the top of the stairs and listen to his mum and dad shout at each other until one day the shouting stopped and she was gone. Dad banned John and Dennis from ever mentioning mum again, and soon after she left, he went around the house and took all the photographs of her and burnt them in a big bonfire. But Dennis managed to save one. One solitary photograph escaped the flames, dancing up into the air from the heat of the fire, before floating through the smoke and onto the hedge. As dusk fell, Dennis snuck out and retrieved the photo. It was charred and blackened around the edges at first, and his heart sank. You see, oh, sorry guys, bless me. But when he turned it to the light, he saw the image was as bright and clear as ever. It showed a joyful scene, a younger John and Dennis with Mum at the beach, Mum wearing a lovely yellow dress with flowers on it. Dennis loved that dress. It was full of colour and life, and soft to touch. When Mum put it on, it meant that summer had arrived. It had been warm outside after she left, but it hadn't really been summer in their house again. In the pictures, Dennis and his brother were in swimming trunks, holding ice cream cones, vanilla ice cream smeared around their mouths, smiling. Dennis kept the photo in his pocket and looked at it secretly every day. His mum looked so achingly beautiful in it, even though her smile was uncertain. Dennis stared at it for hours on end, trying to imagine what he had been thinking when it was taken. After Mum left, Dad didn't say much, but when he did, he would often shout. So Dennis ended up watching a lot of television, and especially his favourite TV show, Trisha. Dennis had seen a Trisha episode about people with depression and thought maybe his dad had that. Dennis loved Trisha. It was a daytime TV talk show where ordinary people were given the opportunity to talk about their problems or yell abuse at their relatives, and it was all presided over a kindly looking but judgmental woman conveniently called Trisha. For a while, Dennis thought his life without his mum would be some kind of adventure. He'd stay up late, eat takeaways, and watch rude comedy shows. However, as the days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into months, and the months turned into years, he realised that it wasn't an adventure at all. It was just sad. Dennis and John sort of loved each other in a way that they had to, because they were brothers. But John tested his love quite often by doing things he thought was funny, like sitting on Dennis's face and farting. If farting had been an Olympic sport, at the time of writing this, I am told it isn't, which I feel is a shame. He would have won a number of gold medals and probably received a knighthood from the Queen. Now, reader, you might be thinking that as their mum had left, the two brothers would be brought closer together. Sadly, it only drove them apart. Unlike Dennis, John was full of silent rage with his mum for leaving, and agreed with Dad that it was better to never mention her ever again. It was one of the rules of the house. No talking about Mum, no crying, and worst of all, no hugging. Dennis, on the other hand, was just full of sadness. Sometimes he missed his mum so much that he cried in bed at night. He tried to cry as quietly as possible because he and his brother shared a room and he didn't want John to hear. But one night, Dennis's sobs woke John up. "Dennis! Dennis! What are you crying for now?" demanded John from his bed. "I don't know. It's just, well, I just wish that Mum was here and everything," came the reply from Dennis. "Well, don't cry. She's gone and she's not coming back." "You don't know that." "She's never coming back, Dennis. Now stop. Only girls cry." But Dennis couldn't stop crying. The pain ebbed and flowed inside him like the sea, crashing down on him, almost drowning him in tears. He didn't want to upset his brother, so he cried as quietly as he possibly could. So why was Dennis so different, I hear you ask? After all, this boy lived in an ordinary house, in an ordinary street, in an ordinary town. Well, I'm not going to tell you why yet, but the clue might be in the title of this book. Thank you, guys. So I will go on to chapter 2 tomorrow, and it was called Fat Dad. So come back and listen to chapter 2. Thanks for watching, boys. Hope you're all staying safe. Bye.